But I'm grateful to have all of you here. We are grateful to have all of you here at all, joining us for It Takes Two with All Raise. We're in for an exciting session. We've got Naomi Shah, who's founder and CEO of Meet Cute. And just a bit about Naomi. First, I will say her story is like what happens when you're an investment, member at a VC turned founder and CEO of a media company that tells, scripted rom-coms in podcast form. So if you never imagined what that could look like, Naomi's here to tell us all about it and her journey. And we have Lynnair Roberts, founder and CEO of GingerBread Capital. And Linnea has been committed for a long time to, helping drive the success for women-led businesses and changing the world for the better. And prior to GingerBread Capital, Linnea has had about 30 years in a career of investment banking and spent the latter half as a partner in the technology sector at Goldman Sachs. So we are in excellent, good company. And before I dive deeper, I'm just going to give you all a preview of Meet Cute, what Meet Cute is, and the magic and the splendor that Naomi delivers, and the deep intelligence, right, that she's brought to this podcasting media world. So Meet Cute is building the world's first rom-com entertainment and lifestyle brand, reinventing the genre one story at a time. In its launch year, Meet Cute produced more than 400 15-minute episodes that caught the attention of more than 2 million listeners, which is wildly impressive. Just for reference, Meet Cute was launched in February of 2020, publicly launched, right, Naomi? So yes. We're not that far. And it was, 2020, as we know, was a challenging year for everyone, and to reach, success at that rapid of a pace is very, very impressive. Meet Cute and Naomi's team are committed to diverse storytelling, and they employ a global network of over 600 creators to make sure they can do just that and deliver representational scripted content into the audio world. So we'll get into how in this time, Naomi's built a business that is now venture backed and with $9.3 million within just a year's time and some change. So without, more of my talking, I'll let you, Naomi and Linnea, tell your story. So why don't we start from the beginning and talk about how each of you arrived at startup co-founder CEO and venture capital co-founder.
Great. Go ahead, Naomi.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction, Alexandra. So yes, I used to actually sit on the investment team at a venture capital fund in New York called Union Square Ventures. They've backed a bunch of companies that people probably recognize, including Twitter and Etsy and SoundCloud. And while I was there, I got really interested in the space of well-being. So what we do to make ourselves feel good. And that spans everything from entertainment all the way to mental health and healthcare. And I noticed that there was a little bit of a gap in funding for entertainment and media companies from venture capital firms. They kind of brought funding in through different means that didn't exactly mirror the risk profile that VCs wanted to take on. And so we started looking for companies in this space that we thought were venture backable and that were building scalable products and creating consistent content and stories. And after spending a lot of time looking for that, we decided to start incubating our own company at USV. And so one day, a couple of the partners sat me down and were like, "You're spending so much time on this. Like, it seems like you're interested in this. Have you ever thought about founding a company and actually being an operator?" And sitting on the other side of the table. And the honest answer is I hadn't. I grew up watching my parents build a business. And so I always thought like it could be in the cards at some point, but I hadn't really in a tangible way imagined what that transition would look like. And so in classic, like how life happens fashion, within the course of a week, I decided to kind of switch directions. Instead of recruiting for other roles in the venture capital world, to start learning what it meant to build a company from the ground up. And that meant really tactical things like how to open a bank account and hire an initial team around the idea. And so we just jumped into that right away. And that was really how it started. And that was late 2019. So almost 2 years now to this day, which is super exciting to be doing this event at the 2-year point from when I made that transition from investor to founder.
Great. And hi, everyone. I'm Linnea. And thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, All Raise. I actually started GingerBread Capital, my venture fund, right around the time when All Raise was just a germination of an idea of several women who are also friends of mine. And so it's just wonderful to see kind of this group take shape and to be such a resource for founders and venture capitalists. And so thank you for that. And so as Alexandra mentioned, I started my career 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago in investment banking, and sort of didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, that's what everybody told me I should do coming out of business school, and it turned out okay. And I definitely, if you were to have polled my business school classmates as to who would still be doing investment banking 3 decades later, I don't think my name would have been anywhere on that list for sure. I'm not sure what they thought I might be doing, but it wouldn't have been that. And but what I did learn was how to have a broad-based look and perspective across a lot of different companies. And so then one of my late learnings, my last job at Goldman Sachs was I ran the diversity efforts within the investment banking division, and spent a lot of time coaching and retaining women. And one of the things I realized is that I really, despite being very well intended, was making a lot of mistakes myself. And so it was a real learning experience. And then when I thought about retiring from investment banking, I did so. And then I officially flunked retirement several months later because as my team has heard me joke many times, I did not lose an ounce at SoulCycle, despite increasing the number of classes that I take, and didn't get any better at golf. So I figured my highest and best use was definitely focusing on business. And it was right around that time where I was wondering, like, okay, where are all the women in venture capital? Where are all the women founders? And I found a lot of women founders, but I didn't find a lot of women funders. And so I always say it's not a lack of founders, it's a lack of funders. And it's a lack of women who sit in decision-making roles. And I always believe the first thing you should do when you see a problem, you better look in the mirror first. And I realized that I was actually the problem. So here I was, a woman well advanced in my career, fortunate to have discretionary capital that I could put to work. And most of my own personal wealth sat in my checking account or in, very, very safe securities. And so I started thinking about my years, listening to people saying, oh yeah, I put $10,000 into this company 10 years ago, and now it's worth X. And of course, you only hear about the good ones, by the way. You never hear about the people that lost money in venture. And, but I just looked at, where were all the women check writers, and decided that the only way out of this was to actually go through it and to learn a lot. So I started looking at women founders. And then our fund is entirely family office based. So we fund every investment personally. And that just hits you right here. Like when every check you write comes from your own checkbook, it's just a very different thought process, and which we love. And so then I'm fortunate enough, I have an incredible team, a diverse team who I'm sure many of you know, Catherine Rice, Edith Pudam, and Olivia Kim. They're awesome. And just have really, really enjoyed. Today we have over 70 portfolio companies. And we're also an LP in about 20 different funds, primarily seed stage funds, but 17 of those funds have women as GPs and 3 have men of color as GPs. And so we just like to say we put our money where our mouth is. And then, you know, the story with Naomi is just it's the best story because we met her, but the support that she had from the team at Union Square was unequivocal. And most importantly, they really appreciated the analysis and the rigor at which she looked at the podcasting and the media space. And they also really admired her as both a leader, but also strategic visionary as to where this could go for a different set of users and customers. And I'll be the first to say, I am definitely outside the core demographic of meet cute. So Naomi and I, we always laugh about this. And so I always have to get her handpicked recommendations like, okay, which one should I actually listen to? But this is where it helps to have, I have younger women on my team. I'm in touch with a lot of younger people because I have a 25-year-old son. And you get perspective. And so every once in a while, you got to get out of your own way and your own biases and historically what I have loved and really listen to other people. And Alexandra, as you went through, Naomi's, launch numbers are extraordinary. And so it was just too compelling for us to pass up.
I love that. And, you know, the key points in what I'm hearing you both say that were really pivotal to your journeys, right? And your own personal successes were, one, accountability, right? In identifying a gap and then looking inward to say, how am I participating in the gap that that I've identified? And then the other is the power of your community. And Naomi, you know, incubating a business at your workplace and having those around you recognize the gift that you have and that you yourself might not have realized in that moment, right? I'm sure you recognize your capabilities, you're smart, but being able to have someone around you say, you know, there's something here, right? Removed. And when we think about the venture and tech space and creating more opportunities for women and non-binary check writers and founders, it is just that, right? It's our ability to say, how are we showing up in this industry, in this space to be the change that we know we need and want to see? And how are we showing up for others, right? Who's the community that's around us? What's the power of our networks? And not in a transactional sense, but in the sense of how are we giving, right? Without expectation to receive, because that's all cyclical. So I just wanted to bring that, sort of tie that knot for everyone listening, because I think that's remarkable. Naomi, another question for you. So we talked about your success within the year, right? You closed a Series A at 6.25 million for Meet Cute. What prompted you to seek venture funding so early on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it ties into exactly what you just said and what Linnea was talking about, which is, you know, there is an important part of fundraising, which is the capital part of it. But I think at the earliest stages of a company, it's really finding the people that you're going to surround yourself with. And the way that founders do that is by hiring incredible people to work on their team. And that is such an important part of any early stage company. Like, the people who come to work with you every day, believe in the North Star and the vision, and they like put like all the sweat, blood, and tears into actually building the product. That is paramount. And then the other part of that is finding the people who will not only provide capital for the company, but also provide advice. A lot of our investors, including Linnea and the GingerBread team, sit at a bird's eye view of the market. So that because they have 70 portfolio companies, because they work with LPs, because they've been in the industry for a lot longer than we have, there are a lot of connections that we can leverage and use to grow our company and think differently than people that came before us in media and entertainment. And I think for every founder that's starting a company, thinking differently about the market is so critical, because we have raised $9.25 million to date. That's still so much smaller in terms of the amount of capital than what legacy entertainment companies have. So if we're not thinking differently and leveraging the smart people in our network, then we're only going to be doing what has come before us instead of kind of paving our own path. And so in order to pave our own path, I think that like every time we have a conversation with one of our investors or an advisor to our company, I find so much value in, okay, what are we doing well right now, but what can we do differently in the next 6 months to 12 months that changes the trajectory of Meet Cute and actually sets us up to be a very industry defining company, because those are the bets that VCs and early stage VCs are really looking to take, because they're not low risk investments. To Linnea's point, it's not like parking your money in an ETF and seeing that grow steadily over the next 20 to 30 years. It really has to change how fundamentally how an industry works from the ground up. And I think those are some of the most interesting conversations to be a part of in the first few months. And so I think that's really the value and the benefit of venture capital and funding, is that you get access to people who are incredibly smart, who believe in a company enough to put millions of dollars in when it's just an idea and a team and a vision, and then working with you every single step to make sure that you get to that vision. That's definitely why we decided early on to raise a Series Seed and then a Series A.
That's perfect. And why don't we go a little bit deeper into your relationship as founder and funder, Naomi and Linnea, and talk about, you know, how you connected and what that interaction was like, what worked, what maybe some points where, you know, you had to sort of get to know each other, get to know the business better. Linnea, you mentioned that, you know, Meet Cute is out of scope in terms of, you know, where you are in your life and in your stage, and maybe talk about how you've been able to be a strong support system for Naomi, despite the generational gap for the content.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I surround myself with much smarter people and definitely younger people than me. And that's a life lesson I would give anyone, is always make sure, in addition to your besties, you've got several friends younger than you that will challenge you and just teach you, just make sure you stay current. No one likes I was teasing my brother the other day, no one likes the old man in the corner, and definitely no one likes the old lady in the corner. So don't be that cranky old person that is stuck in their ways. You know, I'd say for me, one, we always say the first three things we evaluate a company on are founder, and founder. And I'll slice out, parse it a little bit to say that we look at every investment like a marriage. And sometimes we're a really small investor and we're just like, okay, we want to participate in this. It's a, you know, great founder, great brand, unique opportunity, we'll write a check. But for something like this, which was at an interesting stage, because you know, just launching, but raising a Series A, you know, so it wasn't like the stereotypical Series A. I've got $3.5 million in revenues, I'm doing this in ARR. Naomi's clearly building something that is much bigger, and that's one of the things we really love and respect about Union Square, is that they make those early bets on very big future trends that maybe we can't even see. So right now, podcasting looks super obvious, but when Naomi started working on this, it was not super obvious. And so that was very compelling for me. I think the number of places that she can go was also really compelling. But we also look at our relationship with a founder a bit like a marriage. And so I say, like, when you're thinking about who you're going to be in your life with, your life partner, you better not only make sure that that's someone you can enjoy the good times with, but when something goes wrong, and in venture, something always goes wrong. And any founder will tell you they have shit going wrong every day. And so it's just like, how do I handle it is more the question. And so we really look, it's like, is this the person that we want to be in the ring with, making sure that we are helping them get through this? And is this a founder that's going to dig in hard with us to make sure that that happens? And so those attributes are really priceless. And I've seen all different versions of this. I've seen really great versions of this. And so, I just remember Naomi and I got together about, 6 weeks ago. And, she told me, like, here's the things she's trying to accomplish. And we sat in a room and we're like, okay, you should meet this person, this person, this person, this person. She's like, but do you know this person? I'm like, I don't know that person, but I know this person. And that's what we do. And given now, I'm not the most experienced media investor. She probably has other investors who are going to bring that. So as a founder, VCs try to build a portfolio of companies. As a founder, you want to build a portfolio of advice. And it's like, okay, GingerBread Capital, I know that they can help me they're great at connecting me with the right people, whether it's future capital or industry relationships. And Union Square, you know what, they're going to be my strategic gurus and the core execution of my company. And then she will look to other investors. And so we really look at it as like, not only as the founder, so our first three criteria are founder. And then it's like, okay, who does she have around her? And is she smart enough to put smarter people than herself around her? Now, we can't make that qualitative judgment, but is she the type of person that will want to surround herself with the best and sometimes the most challenging advice?
Yes, I remember that 6 weeks ago being in that room and just walking out being like, we accomplished so much in a short time, because
we're all about efficiency too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There was just very good bounce with in that room. And I think that that's something that, looking at a VC's website, you can't really know that until you're actually talking to someone and you're in the thick of it. And like Linnea said, in the hard times of like, okay, we're trying to accomplish this, we're working through it like this, here's how I'm thinking about the next steps, and having someone critique it. As I was preparing for this event, I actually went back in my emails to some of the earliest emails that I had with Linnea, Ida, and Olivia, who are all members of the GingerBread team. And I remember being really impressed by this, because this was like one of the reasons that I was like, I want this firm in our cap table, because it wasn't just about a pitch and then a transaction. In the emails back and forth, they sent me articles to read, and I would respond with my thoughts on the space in some way. And we actually would go back and forth talking about it. And even before they invested, they were already making introductions for me. Oh, you should talk to this person. I have a contact at this brand that would be a perfect fit for Meet Cute. And I think that it's really, really important for founders to find that level of engagement, especially in the early stages when there is so much of green space in front of the company in terms of directions that you can go. Having people who are actually going to step up and dig in and have those really interesting, both strategic and tactical conversations with you. And I think that showing that even before there is a transaction or a transactional component of it is so important. And I felt that in those emails, and I was rereading them, and it was really fun. I think Olivia might have sent me the first note, and then I met Linnea and Ida and was like, there's a very clear fit here. And I also remember I worked at Goldman early on. Linnea had a long career at Goldman. So I just felt like there were a lot of ways that I connected outside of just the mission of Meet Cute and what we were working on, and more like, who do I want to be talking to, and who do I relate to in terms of just career and advice on how to navigate interesting conversations or really hard conversations, because those are all really important building blocks of a company, even if they're more unspoken. And so I think the point about having different people creating or making up that board of people that you go to for various things, like one might be contacts in the media and entertainment space, another might be, hey, here's an operational problem or something that I'm thinking through with the structure of our team. I need advice on how to manage this. And then they introduce you to another early stage company going through the exact same thing. Those are equally beneficial as a founder to have. And I felt a lot of that in the early days of getting to know GingerBread. And I think that over the past year and a half, actually closer to a year now that we've worked together, there's never been just one lane of advice that I'm going to your team for, Linnea. It's always, here is what I'm thinking about right now. In 3 months, what I'm thinking about is probably going to be different. And I've never felt hesitant to come to you guys with, you know, even just like a 2-line email. This is what I'm thinking about. How would you approach this? And I think having that really easy access and communication has really helped us. And what I feel very fortunate to have is investors that are very okay with that. Like in many cases, I text our investors and it's not as formal as needing to put together something and spend a lot of time on it, because like time is probably the most critical asset that we have at this point.
Yeah, and I would also just flag that Naomi's very good, and for any founders on the line, it's incredibly important. You have to make it really easy for people to help you, and so within, you know, hours, if not minutes, of me walking out of that room with Naomi, I had the email intro that she wanted me to send, the list of people we discussed. You leave a meeting and balls are rolling around the floor, and you need a founder and a founding team that will pick them up and say, okay, I'm gonna make this happen for me. Because so many times people make offers to do things, and it's not that people willingly drop the ball. It's just, but a part of the founder's job is, like, we discussed this, just make it really easy for people to help you. And all I have to do is like cut and paste Naomi's words, and all of a sudden I look like a genius because I can speak so eloquently about meet cute, and I can send it to the people we talked about. And so it's one of the hallmarks, kind of behavioral hallmarks that we look for in founders. Like, how's their follow-up? Are they on it all the time? And I quite honestly, I don't know how Naomi gets anything done or how she sleeps at night. So because she's got her hands in a lot of different things.
Lots of coffee.
Lots of coffee is good.
This is great. I mean, and we're still drawing back to the finding your people, right, in the community, and paying attention to who's around you, but more importantly, you both touched on the key of relationship building, right? Naomi, you said like the exchange. What stood out to you was that the exchange wasn't transactional, that you felt that you had a thought partner, right? And people whom you could engage with, learn from, grow with. And Linnea, you're mentioning that collaborative effort, right? And being able to tag team and have, despite, this being a new company, Meet Cute being a new company, despite Naomi being new to, perhaps media and entertainment, but the way that she thinks, her strategy, her approach, and her ability to get things done, right, builds a certain level of trust. Naomi, you speak, very highly of your relationship with Linnea and the GingerBread team. Did you, during your fundraising process, always feel disempowered across the board, or did you grow into it? Did your experience at Union Square Ventures impact how you approached, now being a founder, operator, and raising?
I think seeing it from the other side of the table first definitely is a very unique opportunity that has shaped a lot of how I've founded, including the fundraising process. As Linnea pointed out early on, I was very lucky to have a very close relationship to our seed stage investors, and being a first-time founder, I found that incredibly helpful. I went through the Series A fundraising process, though, like anyone else would in a pandemic. I was meeting tons of investors. I was having a lot of first conversations. People didn't know who I was because I was meeting new investors that I hadn't met in the VC circles that I ran in earlier. And so I felt like the difference between my first fundraise and my second fundraise was my first one was a little untraditional in that it was an opportunity that I was presented with, and my second one felt a lot more traditional, where a founder is going out to people that don't have context around the company, and I had to build up that trust and context from scratch. I would say the question, did I feel empowered? The answer is yes. I always felt empowered because I thought that I could leverage some of the knowledge I had working with founders when I was at USV and understanding what the process looked like inside a VC firm. So knowing what questions would be asked and how they came to decisions. I thought that was a really helpful thing to know going into the fundraising process, which I know a lot of people don't have going into any of these types of meetings and pitches. So I thought that was really helpful. The thing that I think I didn't actually put into practice until probably a few weeks into fundraising is understanding that just as much as it's a fit between the funder and the founder, it's also a fit between the founder and the funder, and asking questions about the way they work and how they're going to introduce you to people and the collaborativeness that I talked about with GingerBread. All of those are really important to get at. So the best conversations that I had during that process were where it really felt like a two-way street. And it almost felt like I was talking to someone who knew, like, wanted to learn more. They asked really good questions. They had read something about the industry. Even if they didn't know the first thing about audio or storytelling or entertainment, they knew what Meet Cute was. They'd listened to a story, and all of those allowed for, a much deeper conversation than just, here's what we do, the like walk through the slide deck in a very kind of processed way, and then have 5 minutes for Q&As at the end. The best conversations I was in, we never even got to the second slide of the deck because we got stuck in a conversation on the first slide about the future of the industry, or like how we're reshaping media from the ground up. And I was able to talk about that, which you can't really get to in like a very rehearsed way. It kind of just has to be a natural fit. And so there was definitely a difference in like how empowered I felt between the conversations that I thought went really well and like the people who I ended up wanting to be investors in Meet Cute versus the people who I thought didn't do, didn't kind of have that like natural inclination to lean forward and take an interest in what this business was and what we're building.
Yeah, there's always surprises, but I spent the better part of my career doing a lot of pitches myself, and I always felt like the best time to pitch is when you're not pitching, and the best time to fundraise is actually when you're not fundraising. And so, Wendy, it goes back to your point around relationship building, and build those relationships. You just never know. I have people that crawl out of the woodwork of my early associate days of investment banking, and it's like, wow, people will remember you if you treat them well, you treat them with respect, and you never know when you're going to need something, and it's better to know someone before you have to ask them for something. And so I love it when, well, I don't love it, but when founders say, I just can't wait to get done with this round so I can stop fundraising. I'm like, oh, no. I say, once you've raised your first dollar, you are never done fundraising. You're fundraising when you hit the button on payroll every 2 weeks. You're fundraising with every new ad you put up. You are fundraising all the time because you're just touching a lot of people. And I think Naomi just understands that instinctively, that relationship aspect.
That's awesome. We have a question from Ritu Gupta. Ritu says, if you don't have that network already, it takes time to build the network because it's hard to get warm intros. Do you have any hacks for getting the warm intros?
Well, I'll start and then I want to get Naomi's view. So, all right, this is a history lesson for everyone. So in the 1970s, which I'm sure very few people on this call remember, but I grew up in the 70s. There was this very famous commercial called the Wella Balsam commercial. So you can Google it. And it was this commercial where this one woman starts and she says, and I tried this shampoo and I told 2 friends and my 2 friends told 2 friends. And it's sort of this exponential growth of basically what looks like a very large Zoom call. And I've always used that visual in my head when I think about building a network is you start with 2 people and every 2 people you meet will always make a recommendation as to you should talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. And if they don't, always end every meeting with everyone, who else should I be talking to? Who else do you think this would resonate with? Or, and whether it's fundraising or just trying to get advice. And I would say 80% of the people that you get recommended you speak to, you probably won't have any need to go back to, but you can cherry pick from all those conversations. And so I would always tell people early in their careers, start building what now is a Zoom screen, but it used to be the Wella Balsam commercial, and start building that early so that when you need to access it, it's really there. I think the other thing that I've seen founders do, which has been really helpful, is they start building not just their investor board, but either their advisory board or sometimes their kitchen cabinet. So it could be publicly stated as an advisory board, but who are the people that aren't on my board that in my dark moments I'm going to go to, or are really going to help me get stuff done, and build that tight group, because that's your jumping off point for your network, is through those individuals. And a lot of them will be older than you because they, my asset now is I know a lot of people. I've just been around long enough, and I know that's my currency. So I better use it to help people like Naomi.
I'll echo that. I think that the network is definitely not something that just like you snap your fingers and gets built. It takes talking to people when you don't need something from them. And I think that it takes doing coffee meetings and conversations that might just be like, tell me about yourself. Like, why did you choose to live in this city? Why did you choose this career path for yourself? And that is really the relationship building that leads to really cool conversations where you can end it with, who should I know? I just thought I'd do an example of like, I have no problem reaching out cold to people, but I think that the biggest difference between a good cold email and a bad cold email is doing research on the person. So like if I needed to reach out to Linnea cold, if I hadn't met her through Olivia and kind of developed that relationship, I think the way that I would do it is like research on Linnea, figuring out what her career has been. I actually know that she invested in a film called Equity that talked about women on Wall Street. And I think that like there is a natural connection there where she already has some experience with investing in media and entertainment. She clearly cares about diversity and bringing new perspectives into media and entertainment. And so my cold email to her would be something like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm a founder. I have this company. I saw that you backed this movie. I think it's really cool. I'd love to chat about it. And I think starting the conversation there puts you in a position of, I'm genuinely curious about you and your path, and not, hey, I'm a startup founder. I know you're a VC. Let's talk about fundraising. It changes the conversation to, all you need to know about me is I'm a curious person and I care. And that's the basis of the relationship, rather than being really transactional. So I actually think that like warm intros are awesome, but I've sent probably like every week that I've been a founder, like 5 to 10 cold emails just based on research and curiosity and wanting to learn about someone. And it takes time. It's like not an easy thing, but the research is the key part of that.
That's amazing. This is probably an It Takes Two first. I don't think we've had any of our founders do a mock cold outreach. So thank you. That's wonderful. And it's very, for the B School folks, it's very reminiscent of when you're, same thing, reaching out to alum, right?
And by the way, one of the stars of the film Equity and producers I introduced to Naomi. And so it's like, you never know. I never would have, initially put those pieces together, but Naomi, she did a lot of the geo mapping for me and kind of said, okay, I would love to do this. And so it's just really helpful. And the good news is today you can do really good research.
Right.
Before we used to have to look at photos in people's offices, like, oh, you're a Yankees fan, great.
And I think the message is being people forward, right? Just keep it human and keep it real and be genuine. And that is what, we all feel, right? I think, Linnea, you said people remember, they don't remember what you said, they remember how you make them feel. Yeah. And that counts for a lot. We've got several questions coming in, so I'm gonna keep it moving with those. Kari Parks asks, how do you both view financing the earliest stage of a company? Debt, equity, friends, or family? What recommendations would you have for those who don't have significant personal wealth or wealthy personal networks?
Well, first of all, I think you have to pick the right equity vehicle or the right financing vehicle that matches up with your company. And so I'll tell you, we get a lot of inbounds from companies that probably don't fit the venture model, which is definitely, we're going to invest in growth. It does not mean that this is not a profitable, high quality company. It may just not hit the venture model. So it's a great question in terms of trying to discern amongst those things. And so clearly the most traditional way is to reach out to friends and family. And absent that, the good news is that there's a much more formalized angel network today. And when I first started looking at funding women, one of the things I saw was there were a ton of angel funds. There were no Series A, Series B, let alone growth funds that were led by women. And so there are these groups of angel funds, and they love to be first check-in. Now, there's always some kind of, you got to get it together and have enough to show someone. But I think more and more there are funds that are, I work with Charles Hudson quite a bit at Precursor, and he always tells me nothing's too early. I want to see everything. And you got to find those people out there where they're not afraid. For me, there's a lot of stuff that's too early. And it's just, I know myself in my own decision-making framework. And so I think just understanding what's going to be the best fit for your company, how much you're looking to raise. And then on the debt question, that really just depends on the business model. And so I'm a big believer in debt to help with cash flow. If you're sort of like maybe in a growth stage, but you actually have a much more profitable model in the early days. So it's not just adding to your burn. And because no one wants to, there are vehicles for doing debt early on, but they're usually looking for some collateral. They're looking for either receivables or inventory so that they have something that they can go against. And debt will sit above your equity. So also understand equity holders are not going to love it if you have a ton of debt. So I think it's a little bit of a process in figuring out, and what does your business model look like?
And if you're not, I think that's solid advice. And for those who might want to learn a bit more about venture debt financing, it just so happens serendipitously that tomorrow we have a workshop with SVB. If you want to dive deeper and learn sort of what the implications are, how, if that's something that's right for you. And I'll drop the link in our chat, but it's a workshop tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Great. Thanks. That's all.
Of course. Pilar Rivera asks, from the perspective of the VC, you've addressed the importance of the founder being an integral, if not the most integral part of investing in an idea. could you expand on some key traits you look for, and how, as a woman, do you prepare yourself to also address the predominantly male world of VCs? I think probably Naomi, both Naomi and Linnea, you could have some comments here.
I'll let Naomi go first on this one.
Yeah, I think that, like, so when I was on the VC side of the table, the first pitch that I actually ever sat in on was this woman who ran a direct-to-consumer subscription business. And when you walk into the USV team room, there's about 15 people in the room. It's not the least intimidating place to be. There's like a screen behind you where you're projecting your deck. And she actually spoke very quietly. And at first I was like, oh no, like this pitch is like, you know, I just imagined a founder being kind of a little bit louder and projecting and like standing up tall, but she sat down the entire time. She spoke quietly, but she was so confident in her deck, and she was so confident in what she was saying. And she had the numbers to back it up on the slide. And not a single person in that room was on their phone. Everyone was leaning forward to listen to her because they needed to hear. And that was one of the best examples of a pitch I've ever seen, because her speaking quietly was her being like, this is how I am as a founder. Like, I speak quietly, but I lead with confidence. And I think that like there was an unspoken consensus when she walked out of the room that we were going to back that company, because everyone was so engaged the entire time. And so I actually don't think that there's a right answer in terms of like key traits. It's not like we need someone who's really loud and going to like pound the table with their fist, or not someone who is going to lead quietly. Like, there isn't really a right answer in terms of key traits. But I do think the underlying thing between a lot of successful founders that I look up to is conviction and confidence in what you're building, and then the vision that you want, because it's really easy to be pulled in different directions. If one person at the table is like, hey, like, is this going to be an artificial intelligence storytelling platform? And you try and go down the rabbit hole of saying yes when you don't actually believe it, like, that is going to be the first sign of she doesn't have conviction in what she's building. Whereas if you're like, no, that's actually not part of our vision, but here is the vision. We want to be a data-driven storytelling company. And you explain that, people are going to say, wow, like, she knows the answers, not just what she wants to do, but what she doesn't want to do. And I think especially as a woman, it's important to not say things like, and I'm at fault for this, but like, I think, and maybe, and just kind of be confident in it and use words that convey that. Those always stood out to me as some of the best pitches from a VC standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so many different kind of personality types of great founders. I think one of the, in addition to just having the right, a strategic vision, you can understand. I want a founder to teach me something about their business and their landscape. So my favorite thing to really poke at is, does someone really understand who and what they're up against from a competitive standpoint? Because competitive mode is incredibly important, and it's a very early industry. So here's the things that could happen. It could be, hey, we're third mover, but here's why we're gonna, take down mover one and mover two, or we think this is a big enough market where there's probably gonna be, 5 movers that make it and 15 that die. And so there's no right answers, but if you cannot lay out the landscape for me and where you fit and what your differentiators are, that for me, that's just an immediate, like, a source of frustration, because I'm like wanting it on that call. And my team has heard me like just try and tee people up to give that to me. And I remember, someone said, oh, yeah, we really don't have any competition. And, we're just doing it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's an incredibly naive point of view. I would also just say, yeah, don't try and be something that you're not, trust in. If you're doing this, you clearly have a lot of passion, conviction around what you're building. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spending your life doing it. And so make sure that comes through. Make sure you have that personal story that people will remember as why they're doing this. And that really needs to just seep through in everything, because I may not remember, all the episodes of Meet Cute, but I remember Naomi's story and why she started this and what she saw as really lacking in, the scripted world. And so she taught me something that I didn't know.
I will add one thing to that, to answer the second part of that question, which is, as a woman, how do you prepare yourself to address the predominantly male world of VCs? I think that this goes back to what Linnea said at the beginning, which is there are starting to be a lot more women in VCs. So like seeking them out and finding them, I think is important, because the more female funders there are, the more female founders will get noticed and interested in backing their companies. But to prepare yourself, like I actually addressed it head on in the beginning of the pitch. I just said, who here knows what a meet cute is? And I think that what happened is that a lot of people in the room, especially if there were men, were very open about being like, I actually don't know what a meet cute is. And then I played a scene from The Holiday where like one of the characters explains a meet cute. And I was like, that's totally fine. Like, you don't need to know everything about this content to know that this is a good business idea. And now let me tell you why. Now that we've gotten over the fact that you're not the target demo necessarily, but you don't have to be to make an awesome investment. I think addressing it head on and just being very open about it without hesitation is sometimes like the best way to approach stuff like that.
And I think that's strong, right? Because Naomi, it also gives off the confidence that you mentioned before, right? You're getting in front of the question mark. You're proactively, anticipating where the hesitation may be, and you're addressing it. So that question that, an investor may have as you're presenting is now no longer in the back of their mind, and they can focus on what it is that you bring to the table and that you're talking about. And, it's a lot about the showing and not telling, right? How do you illustrate for a person who is outside of the world that you might exist in, right? How do you bring them in? And I think that's super, super strong. We are nearing the end we've been moving so fast, and I love how interactive everyone's been. And I apologize if we weren't able to get to your questions, but I want to give Naomi enough time to tell us about her upcoming holiday slate for Meet Cute. It's pretty cool. There's some good episodes, coming forth as we are into the holiday season, and especially starting next week, we'll get all the holiday fun. So Naomi, do you want to share?
Yes, I know, it's crazy. It's our last full week before Thanksgiving. It blows my mind. So we have a really fun holiday slate coming out at Meet Cute. You can find us on any audio platform, follow us on social, subscribe to our newsletter. We have a Hanukkah slate coming out in the end of November. And then we have a bunch of standalone holiday episodes coming out in December, as well as our 6-part series called Christmas Time Machine, which is one of the funniest kind of twists of a rom-com that you could imagine. There is time travel involved in it, and it's hilarious. So make sure that you check it out and let us know what you think. We love hearing from our audiences and interacting with people who are listening to our content.
Awesome. Linnea, do you have any parting words that you would like to share with anyone, or everyone rather?
Just make sure if anyone on this call ever is in a position to help out a female founder, do it. Get your friends involved. What I hear too much at GingerBread is I get cold emails from people saying, wow, I love so many of the companies you're invested in. How do I do this? And so you just never know. And it's time for women to change the landscape for themselves instead of relying on other people to do it for them. And so just be a part of the solution. Find your Naomi, they're out there. and if you don't want to make direct investments into companies and you're too busy to go through pitch decks, I love going through pitch decks, invest in a fund that's led by women. And we have many of them. So, but thank you. Just keep the dialogue going.
We need more Linneas and Alexandras.
Like, you see, do you have a venture Meet Cute yet, Naomi?
No, but you should definitely voice act in it when we have it.
Come on, we got to do better than Silicon Valley, right? The show.
know. Oh, yes,
We need our own version of that for the rom-com world.
Exactly.
Yes, no, that'll be so good. Thank you, ladies. This was great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Wendy, do you want to hop up just to close us out?
Thank you, Alexandra.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you both so much. Really enjoyed hearing your insights today. I did post a link to our survey. We'd love to get your feedback. It is important for us to keep making improvements to all of our programs that we do. I think the It Takes Two series was launched from a piece of feedback that we got from another event that we did. So it just helps us keep getting better and better. But thank you so much. Connect with each other. Let's keep the conversation going, like they said, and give us your feedback again. That link is in the chat window. And we'll see you at the next one. Thank you so much for your support of All Raise, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. This was
Bye,
awesome.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.